Here we go again with the tale about Jebediah Parnta, a gnome boy growing up in a magical land with many monstrous beasts and giants, as well as some other very terrible people. But luckily, the beasts and other terrible things don't come up until later in his life. This story is about a simple trip into town with his family to trade odds and ends that they create and find. Only Jebediah's father, Garin, his eldest brother, Peranuk, and himself were in the cart for this trek. On the way, in this particular journey, they encountered a cart with a broken wheel that was still trucking at its slowed pace along the narrow road to Tradesmeet. The cart kept a rhythmic beat as the broken part of the wheel hit the dry earth of the road. As the three gnomes approached the cart, they could hear a strumming of a lute that seemed to keep time with the wheel. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. As the three gnomes pulled up alongside the other cart, they could see that it was carrying 3 large stones, one black, one red, and one white. Probably the reason that the broken wheel made such a loud thump as it hit the dirt. As the driver came into view, the gnomes could see that it was a muscular dwarf with uncharacteristically short blonde hair and beard. They saw the lute he was strumming, and as the gnomes came up alongside this character, Garn yelled over in between the thumping, "Hey, we have a spare wheel on the bottom of our cart that we'd be happy to lend you till we get to Tradesmeet." The interesting dwarf responded, "Oh, that's mighty kind of you, sir, but I have my own spare wheel. I'm just enjoying the rhythm for my strumming. I'll see you in Tradesmeet unless you would like one of these stones now." To which Garen replied, "No, those stones aren't really our interest." The dwarf took a moment and then responded, "Fair enough, best of luck to you." Looking at the horse pulling the cart as they passed, Jebediah asked his father, "Doesn't he know he's making his horse more tired by leaving the wheel like that?" Which Garen replied, "Often in life, one thing's rhythm is another's rough time."
This is a tale of some gnomes. I think there were 3 of them. One of the 3 gnomes was named Garin, and he was traveling with his brothers and or father. And they were traveling down a road in their cart when they came across another cart, and the cart seemed to be broken because it was moving really slowly, and it had a broken wheel. And every time the wheel turned, the broken wheel slammed on the ground and made a thud noise. And as they got closer, they could hear a strumming. Every time the broken wheel hit the ground, they could also hear the strum of a lute, and it sounded like this. Do 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 do. And as they pulled up alongside of the cart, the 3 gnomes looked over and they saw that there was a dwarf driving this cart, and the dwarf had blonde hair and some facial hair, and he spoke with an Irish accent. And the 3 gnomes asked this dwarf, "Hey dwarf, do you want a spare wheel, because we got a spare wheel under our cart?" To which the dwarf replied, "Oh no, thank you, I got my own I got my own spare wheel down under the cart." And the gnomes were like, "Okay." And then they said some more words, but I forget what they said. And then the 3 gnomes drove away, and left this guy in the dust. And the 3 gnomes, as they were driving away, one of them said to another of the gnomes, "Doesn't he realize that he's making his horse more tired by having the horse pull a broken wheeled cart?" And to which the other gnome replied, oh man, it was a good phrase too. One man's rhythm is another man's one's rhythm makes another one rougher.
Alright, so here it goes. So this is a tale of three gnomes. One of them's name is Garin, and the other two are are his brothers, and one of them may be his father. So they're going down this road on their cart, and they come up to they start seeing and hearing another cart coming down the road as coming down the road the other way. Um, Soon they start hearing a thumping noise, and it's because the cart has a broken wheel. And as they get closer, every time the uh, every time the part of the broken wheel that hits the ground, there's a thump. But then you hear a strum along with it. They get closer and they get closer, and it's louder. And right as they're passing, they start hearing a song that goes do 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 do. And they look, and the creature that is driving the broken cart is a dwarf with blonde hair and some blonde facial hair as well. And he has an Irish accent, and one of the gnomes asks him, "Do you want one of our wheel? Oh, do you want one of our wheels for your cart? We have one. We have one under our cart, so you can fix your wheel." And then he goes, "Sorry, this is a really bad Irish accent. Oh no, I don't need one. I don't need one. I have one of my own." And the gnomes were like, "Well, okay." And they started going and left the cart in the dust. And one of the gnomes asked another gnome and said, "Doesn't he know that having a broken wheel makes the horse more tired?" And the other gnome replied, "One man's rhythm is another man's rough." And that's the end of the story.
Okay, we are recording now. Had a technical difficulty there, but anyway, 'tis the story of three gnomes. Goran, his brother, and his father, taking a trip in their cart one day. As they go down the road, dust kicking up and everything like that, they go down and they start hearing a faint kerthump, kerthump, kerthump. And they don't think much of it, and then they see a cart approaching, and the noise gets louder. Thump, 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 kerthump, thump, kerthump, thump. Okay, and it gets louder and louder as the cart approaches. Cart evidently has a broken wheel. And as the cart comes up to them, they see that there's a dwarf driving that cart. They stop next to it and they offer their spare wheel to the dwarf so they can stop the cart from thumping. And the dwarf goes, "Nah, I'm okay. I've got a spare as well. I'll be good." And proceeds on. Kerthump, kerthump, thump, thump, kerthump, 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 thump, thump. And the one gnome says to the other, "Wow, don't they know that that's more strenuous on the horse, causes a horse extra stuff? Well, it runs because of the thumping and the broken wheel." And the other gnome looks back and goes, "Yeah, but one man's thump is another man's rhythm." And that's the end of the story.
Okay, here we go. I was having technical difficulty. This is a story of a gnome named Gordon and his brother and his father. They were traveling along a road when their cart started making a thumping noise, going kerthump, kerthump, kerthump. Along the way, they met up with a short person. The short person offered to help them with their noise. The gnomes said no thank you, they would keep going. As they continued on, that noise kept going, kerthump, kerthump, kerthump. And the one gnome said to the other, we should fix that because it's making it hard for the horse to pull the cart. But the other gnome said, one man's kerthump is another man's joy. And that's it.
So, having technical difficulties, but there was a gnome named Gordo and his father, and they were traveling on a long road, and their cart was going kerthump, 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 and they ran into a small person, and that small person offered to help with their cart, but they said no. And then one gnome said to the other, we need to fix this kerthump because it will make it easier for the horses to pull the cart. But then the other gnome said, one man's kerthump is another man's joy.